Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying to the quiet village of Kitumo, nestled between green hills and sun-baked fields. It was a place where people lived simple lives, bound by hard work and a sense of community. But a shadow loomed over this peace, and that shadow had a name, Mutiso. He lived on the fringes of the village, in a broken-down hut, as isolated as his heart. Tall, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to hold a permanent suspicion, Mutiso was more than just rude. He was cruel. His meanness was a cold wind that swept through Kitumo, extinguishing warmth wherever it went. He'd shout at children playing, find humor in a neighbor's loss, and take whatever he wanted without a second thought. No one dared to challenge him. His tongue was as sharp as the machete that was his constant companion, a glinting symbol of the fear he cultivated. As dusk settled, doors in Kitumo were bolted early. The heavy, slow thud of Mutiso's footsteps was a sound every villager knew and dreaded. It was the sound of anger walking the earth. Mothers would hush their children with a whisper, "Sleep now, or Mutiso will hear you." But Mutiso reveled in their fear. It was his crown, his kingdom. He believed it made him strong, a king in his own dark world. One morning, the very air in Kitumo felt heavy, as if mourning something. The whispers started soon after. Mutiso had been seen at the market, brazenly walking off with a sack of maize. A young man named Baraka, filled with a courage that others had lost, reported it to the chief. But, when confronted, Mutiso just laughed. "Who here will stop me?" he sneered, his eyes sweeping over the silent crowd. "Even the chief fears me." The very next day, Baraka's goats vanished. All eyes turned towards Mutiso's hut, where he sat outside, calmly roasting meat, a smirk playing on his lips. The message was clear. From that day, a new, deeper fear took root in Kitumo. Voices were lowered, food was hidden away, and children were kept close. The village, once open and trusting, began to close in on itself. An old woman, Mama Tano, known for her wisdom, decided to speak to him. She approached him gently, her voice soft but firm. "Mutiso," she said, "fear is like a fire. It will eventually burn the one who started it." He just threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Then let it burn," he declared. "At least they will remember my name." Soon after, Mama Tano's, a source of life for her family, mysteriously ran dry. Was it bad luck? Or was it another of Mutiso's cruel lessons? Mutiso's power wasn't supernatural, it was psychological. He fed on the fear he created. Every whisper, every frightened glance, every locked door was a tribute that made him stronger. But as he feasted on the village's terror, something inside him began to rot. It started subtly, at night, when the world was still. He began hearing things, faint footsteps that seemed to trail just behind him, always disappearing when he turned. One night, he was jolted awake by the unmistakable sound of breathing, right there in his hut. It wasn't his own. He shot up, heart pounding, and called out, "Who's there?" Only silence answered. He stumbled outside, the moonlight casting long, dancing shadows. He saw movement behind the trees and dismissed it as the wind. But the next morning, he found them. Small footprints near his hut, like those of a child. But there were no children in his life. Sleep became a luxury Mutiso could no longer afford. The villagers started seeing him pacing, shouting at the wind, at the trees, at nothing at all. Their fear began to mix with a new kind of unease. Some said he was going mad. Others whispered that the darkness he had sown was finally coming home to roost, eating him from the inside out. The village, meanwhile, tried to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. The market slowly came back to life, and the sound of cautious laughter could be heard again. But the fear remained, a fine layer of dust that coated everything. Then came the day a young boy named Juma was playing, and his ball rolled near Mutiso's hut. A collective breath was held across the village as Juma, innocent and unafraid, ran to retrieve it. Mutiso emerged from his hut, holding the ball. For a moment, there was a strange stillness. He smiled, but it was a cold, predatory thing. "You want this?" he asked softly. Juma nodded, his eyes wide. With deliberate slowness, Mutiso dropped the ball into a puddle of mud and ground it under his heel until it popped with a sad sigh. "Now go," he said, his voice flat. "Tell your mother to make you another." Juma fled, his sobs echoing in the stunned silence. That night, something unprecedented happened. A stone crashed through Mutiso's window. It was a small act of defiance, but it was a crack in the wall of fear he had so carefully built. Mutiso didn't sleep a wink that night. The days that followed were strange. A string of misfortunes began to plague him. His chickens stopped laying eggs. His goats, once fat and healthy, refused to eat. The very walls of his hut began to develop deep cracks, as if the earth itself was rejecting him. Mutiso's paranoia grew into a raging fire. He would stand outside his hut, screaming that the villagers were cursing him, plotting against him. But his shouts were met with an unnerving, absolute silence. The fear that had been his shield now became his prison. His power was built on interaction, on reaction. But the village had learned a new strategy: isolation. No one spoke to him, no one looked at him, no one brought him food when his own supplies dwindled. His laughter, when he forced it out, sounded hollow and desperate in the vast quiet. The fear had curdled into a profound loneliness. He began to wander at night, no longer a predator but a ghost, muttering to himself, circling his own crumbling world. "They think they can break me. They can't." Then the storm came. It was a deluge, turning paths into churning rivers and lighting up the sky with jagged flashes. As the villagers huddled in their homes, a new sound cut through the roar of the rain, desperate, inhuman scream. When morning broke, the world was washed clean. Mutiso's hut was a ruin, its roof caved in. And there he sat, in the middle of the mud, drenched and staring blankly at the sky, utterly defeated. Children, their curiosity overcoming their fear, watched from a distance. They whispered about the madman in the rain. He saw them and roared, "What are you looking at?" They scattered, but this time, their fear was replaced by something else. Their childish laughter drifted back on the wind, and for Mutiso, that sound burned hotter and deeper than any shame or physical pain. In the weeks that followed, Mutiso became a ghost. He vanished from the market, from the village paths. Some said he'd finally left, driven out by his own demons. Others were more wary, believing he was just waiting, biding his time. Then, one morning, the whispers began again. Fresh footprints had appeared outside people's homes overnight. Large, muddy tracks leading from the village towards the dark hills. "He's watching us," someone said, a chill running down their spine. From the hills, that night, a thin plume of smoke was seen rising from the edge of the forest, near the skeletal remains of his old hut. No one went to investigate. The fear had returned to Kitumo. But it was different now. It was the fear of an unknown, a shadow in the hills, a story that wasn't quite over. Mutiso, broken and alone, had become something else entirely, a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered in the dark. What a powerful story about how the fear we create can ultimately become our own undoing. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, Subscribe for more content, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay safe, and see you next time.